What group of people get too much hate? Why? Goths. They're not harming anyone. Just let them be weird. We all want to sack Rome every now and then. Ugly people. You know why? They ain't got no alibi. Anyone with a weird hobby that doesn't hurt anyone. Train spotting. The kind where you watch and film trains. Not the heroin kind. And people are real jerks to me about it. People keep telling me that I'm just wasting my time. Don't know why they care, because it's my damn time. It may seem boring, but let me tell you, when an SD80MAC goes by, it's still boring if you're not into it. Middle-aged women. Nobody cares about us, even if a lot of us are really busy working full-time, raising kids, taking care of our elderly parents, volunteering. But because we don't all look like Kate Beckinsale, we are rarely appreciated. We are so uncool that everything we like is ridiculed. If I drink a glass of wine, I'm a drunk. If I like cats, I'm a crazy cat lady. We are just like any group of people. We are all different with different likes and dislikes. It's not because we are the same age that we like the same things. I laugh at Karens too. Woman approaching middle age checking in. This hits home. I used to be cool and do cool things. I still do some cool things. But I'm really into my cat, wine, gardening, and cribbage. I can feel myself getting less cool by the day. Vegans. They wouldn't get as much if they just stopped telling everyone they meet they're vegan and you're inhumane for not being one. So, this is a case of the vocal minority. I am vegan. Only mentioning it because it is relevant to this conversation. And have several friends who are vegan. And when we're with non-vegans, it almost never comes up. Many of my friends have no idea I'm vegan. The only reason I bring it up is when someone asks me what I want to eat, or if they offer me meat. And I never berate people for their choice to eat whatever they want to eat. I will only moralize with people if they engage me in conversation about why I chose this lifestyle. Every single one of the vegans I know personally behave in exactly the same way. I do see vegans acting like asshats in public forums, though, so I know that obnoxious vegans do exist. There is nothing that I can do to stop those people from acting the way that they do. And yet, if I do mention to someone that I am vegan, 9 times out of 10 I get berated for it. All I'm trying to do is not hurt animals. But apparently that makes me an asshole. So true. Most people need to remember the vocal minority thing applies to so many groups and movements. Feminists. I see a lot of snide comments and memes on Reddit bashing feminism from people who've got the wrong idea about what it is. Mostly because of the radical feminists that make equality look like female supremacy. Yeah, I am a feminist, and I think a lot of people I know IRL would be shocked that I am I'm just a normal person who believes in equality. I've seen a lot of bad things happen to women just because they were women, and I'd like to have those things never happen again. I'm not against men, and I gladly fight against the stigma many men face when they attempt to get help as sexual violence victims. Personally, I think that falls under the umbrella of feminism. I like to think that most people are feminists without realizing it. If someone believes that women should have the same rights as men, then that makes them a feminist. And if they don't, then they're sexist. It's just that people won't identify themselves with the label of feminist to avoid the stigma that misandrists give that title. Bryfly dated a feminist. She was pretty sweet and absolutely insisted that she pay for dinner when we went out. Trans people. People are convinced we're crazy perverts. Agreed. Trans people face violence every day and it's heartbreaking. Gamers. Like World of Warcraft type. I am not a gamer. But every now and then I'll see a gamer gang in public and just nod with a smile. They are so happy with each other, it makes me happy for them, monsieur. Most Reddit answer I've seen. Gamers. Getting attacked by media, politicians and internet personalities. Get called white supremacists, basement dwellers, incels, rapists, sexists, misogynists and school shooters. It's just an escape from reality. like reading a book or watching a movie. But apparently we're all monsters. Exactly. I play games all the time. Sure, I've blown up a church, but that's completely unrelated. Look, who hasn't sold weapons to Iran behind the back of Congress to fund death squads in Nicaragua? And yeah, sue me. I used some of the coke money to flood the streets of LA with crack. Like, I'm sure you're perfect. Ronald Reagan, is that you? Didn't know old Ronnie was an epic gamer. Explains why he hated black people. The non-social ones. Folks with eccentric hobbies. Ain't no harm in that. People ought to like the things they want to like without judgment, provided it doesn't cause harm, monsieur. Especially those who like to shit on something you made, which might look effortless or easy in execution, but might have taken a lot of time and or effort. No, I don't like it. I'm always like, motherfucker, you try it, then. Quote, fat people. They're the projection of what is wrong at society, and each individual projects on them everything they don't like about society and themselves. Additionally, they're somehow just perpetually in the way. Nickelback. Nickelback are just a somewhat generic 2000s alt-rock band that Reddit has decided to had a wank to. Their stuff isn't even bad. I went to Nickelback concert with some friends because they had an extra ticket and it rocked super hard. Singing Rockstar after 6 beers was heavenly. Furries. For the most part they're okay people. Yeah, they have a weird thing, and yeah, there's some pervy elements to their community, but for the most part they're okay. Most furries I've met are quiet and sweet. One of my friends is one. He's not ashamed and doesn't really hide it, but I look past it for who he is. He's got a super cool car and he's spent so much time perfecting it. And he sells designs online. Plus the other million things he does. I introduced him to a new friend group of mine and they all shunned him faced with cold sweat. While it's not my choice of reading material, I've never quite understood the hate towards yaw books and those who read them, monsieur. Neurodiverse folks. People hate us for being weird or different. A lot of times, they don't even know what it is exactly. Maybe we have a little too much energy, or speak slightly differently, have different mannerisms, or send the conversation in unexpected directions. I know I make people uncomfortable sometimes, but like, it's pretty dumb to hate someone because you are uncomfortable. Also, Christians get way too much hate. Usually because people assume being Christian equals Republican, equals queerphobic, equals racist, equals Trump supporter, equals so many goddamn things that are only sometimes true. People don't seem to realize the word Christians encompasses so many different things, from Catholics to Lutherans and evangelicals, etc. And people stereotype the hell out of them. Monsieur saw a photo of the Pope kissing the feet of some black men. I wish I knew more about the context, but this was the internet with context erased. The black men were dressed in a professional manner though, and people were saying like this must be photoshopped. Like, no. Do you know what Catholicism is about? Do you know how our traditions emphasize service and humility? Do you know the story of Jesus washing the servants' feet, and how he routinely welcomed the outcasts? I'm not a fan of what the internet thinks Christianity, or Catholicism, is. I'm not a fan of identifying as Catholic and queer and feeling more isolated from the queer community because of it. Never really had trouble with the Catholics about being queer, but sure do get trouble from queer folks about being Catholic. Most of the biggest charities caring for people in the United States were and/or are Christian-based. If they went away, they would leave an even bigger hole in the American social safety net. That, too, and the fact that there are so many Christian charities is another reason it baffles me when people think church is a money-making scheme or that they hate marginalized groups. Like we're actively giving to marginalized groups. Our schools required service hours. We housed and fed homeless people in the gym during winter nights. And we're certainly not making a profit. Have you seen the little house the priests live in next to our church? Or how underfunded our schools are? Straight white males. We always are getting told, oh, are so white, as if it's an insult. Not to mention that some women say all men are abusive and some gay people say straight people are basic. And some black people say all white people are racist, and at the end of the day we are seen as the one that has everything. Not true. I remember a conversation with two left-wing activist girls I knew about a mutual friend's mental health struggles. One response was, he's a straight white male. What has he got to be depressed or suicidal about? Single quote. With the other agreeing. Hearing that drove me further away from left-wing politics. Ah, the good old oppression Olympics. People really need to stop making suffering a competition. I agree with you about distancing from the left. Like there's so much I agree with on the left. Drugs, guns, healthcare, racism still being an issue. The need for political reform through peaceful means. But then I come across stuff like this. One of the big ones for me was the argument that if you're white you're racist, no ifs, ands, or buts. If you're an interracial couple, the white spouse is still a racist. If you adopted a black child, you're still a racist. Granted, I believe that it's a very tiny fraction of left-wing that believe in that, but the unwillingness to denounce subgroups like that make me wary. I got in difficult conversation with some friends that essentially boil down to the definition of the meaning of privilege. It's not a privilege to not be profiled by or consistently threatened by police and racists, etc. That's black, brown immigrants, etc. having their rights trampled, which is a huge issue that needs to be addressed. But it's not a race to the bottom. Pitting us against one another is just another way to keep us divided and distracted. It's not a zero-sum game. Everyone should be sharing the same rights. People should stop indiscriminately blaming whites for this, and white people need to acknowledge that system racism and inherent disadvantages are real. Even if you personally were never attacked or accosted for your ethnicity. Yeah, privileged was a shitty choice of words to use to describe the situation. And it annoys some people because it sounds like certain people are being entitled by just not having their rights stomped on. When someone gets murdered, you don't point at people who didn't get murdered and say they're privileged. It's just that the victim got fucked. Not that everyone else has some kind of undeserved luxury. I think it breeds resentment and fuels racism. Monsieur, don't get me wrong, there are a fuckload of privileged white people, but every low-middle-income white person trying to pay their rent, mortgage, and take care of their family while feeling the same middle-class squeeze and crush as everyone else being told how fucking privileged they are really isn't doing any favors. Fat people, even when they're trying to put their health first. I've heard so many stories of fat people going to the gym or going for a run, only to get made fun of or called a whale. People don't understand that while losing weight is usually simple, that doesn't mean it's easy. There are a whole host of mental blocks, lifelong habits, socioeconomic factors, and mental or physical health conditions that contribute to gaining and maintaining a higher weight. If you've ever been fat, you know not to judge. Even if you've lost that weight, you understand how much of a struggle it is to both be fat and to lose weight. But not everyone does, unfortunately, and so they think of fat people as inherently lazy and morally hedonistic. It sucks. Teenage girls. Pretty much everything they enjoy gets vilified to the point where a lot of them end up internalizing the misogyny and end up suppressing big parts of their personality so they don't get seen as vapid girl. It doesn't make any sense. Plenty of things teenage boys are into are vapid and pointless. Not shaming. I'm into some stupid stuff too. But they don't get treated like they are. What's wrong with society for it? Russians, because why not blame the Russians? After scrolling through this, apparently everyone gets too much hate. Unfortunately, that's probably accurate. Collectors. Like, a collector who likes Funko Pops, for example. Why hate them? Because you're envious or something? I do understand that collectors, depending on who they are, can be kinda bad to have around. The kind of collectors I personally favor are collectors who preserve things like video games. I think the hate for Funko Pops specifically comes from the fact that they're cheap and poorly designed. More fully fledged figure collectors who are willing to drop $80 minus $200 on a single figure probably see them as an embarrassment to the hobby. Personally, I think they're a good gateway into the hobby, especially for younger and less experienced individuals who don't care about the design and just want a cheap figure of a character or popular figure they like. They were what got me into collecting figures. If it brings more people in, then I see no reason to hate it. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.